Hi everyone, so today I'm joined by Johanna Schledet from Rocket Space, originally based in San Francisco, now having moved to Germany to help build up operations here in Europe. Rocket Space is typically an accelerator space that different startups and corporates can go to with their new venture programs. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how acceleration and incubation can happen outside of the corporate and the environment that goes with that, and get some insights. So Johanna, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Yeah.
No worries. Just give us a quick introduction to yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Johanna. I have been with various big corporations and as well startups in Silicon Valley over the last couple of about 5 years, and just recently moved with Rocket Space, specifically Rocket X, our corporate innovation programs, to Munich. And yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting what's happening in the startup space and as well like in the corporate innovation space here in Europe. So we're now in the process of expanding our operations further into the global world, as we think, of course, you can learn a lot from Silicon Valley. It's still like the hub of innovation, but it's expanding to further tech hubs all around the world, and we want to be there as well.
Okay, great. So can you give us a bit of background as to how Rocket Space functions, and also your new approach of combining the corporate world with startups? So I know a lot of corporate innovation teams will now come and spend time in your hub. Let us know a bit about that process and how it works.
So yeah, maybe first of all, to give you a little bit more background on what Rocket Space is. So we started out in beginning of 2011 through our founder Duncan Logan in downtown San Francisco, and established Rocket Space as initially really a co-working space to bring seed-funded startups into an ecosystem where they can accelerate their business. So that's as well like one requirement we have for all our startups. They have to have seed funding. They have to have a minimum viable product. Usually they come out of Y Combinator and similar programs, and then accelerate their growth at Rocket Space. And it's now about 180 startups on our campus in San Francisco. We, in between last year, moved to a new building as we grew out of our old building on Folsom Street. And it's now at like between 700, 800 entrepreneurs on the campus, covering basically technology startups ranging from advertising companies to 3D printing startups. So really covering the full range. And I think that's as well like when you ask like how Rocket Space is basically functioning. Yeah, we call ourselves an accelerator and open innovation campus because we bring together, and it started all with the startups, the tech startups, but it generated a lot of interest as well from the corporate world and from different governments. So by now it's an open innovation campus bringing together startups, bringing together venture capitalists, bringing together big corporations, and we have quite a few big organizations such as Samsung, Axel Springer, Pearson Publishing, who are working out of Rocket Space in San Francisco to either basically launch their accelerator programs, or as well have just access to startups and build out jointly partnerships, or even look into investments. And then as well there are big government programs. Since beginning of July we work together with the IET-ICT, the European Innovation Fund, and then as well the US MEC and some further Spain Tech Center, for example, to bring together an ecosystem of innovation. And that's really how as well like our corporate partners leverage the campus to have basically to enter an innovation ecosystem without having to build it up beforehand themselves.
Okay, so you started out by focusing on very high caliber startups that have gone through strong incubation programs, received seed funding. So you have about 700 of those companies. and then you started to see a lot of interest from the corporate world. What is the main benefit for these corporates to get involved with your startup ecosystem?
Mm-hmm. So I think for the majority of corporates, and especially those corporate organizations who are about to be disrupted, and I'm always thinking back to this statement from Anderson, Harvard's on software is eating the world. So they see they have to build new business, and they have to do it quickly and not have that on the 5-year plan. So the benefit for them is to not build those programs themselves, but do it from an established campus. And I think a lot. I mean, if you look at the world right now, so 50% of the whole world population is below 30 years old. So that gives you an indication about what type of products you have to build out. That's all those digital natives who are working with their smartphones, who are looking into new products on their tablets. So they have the pressure to build those new products. And first of all, to either be inspired, and they find this inspiration on the campus because they are just sitting side by side to companies like AdColony or Supercell and other ones. And then as well, we help them with our Rocket X team, and that's the corporate innovation program we build out to build out programs such as accelerator programs.
So is it about matchmaking the corporate with a particular startup and a skill set, or is it more about just soaking up the environment?
I'd say it could be both, and there are different partnership models we offer. Some of the companies we work with, they have already a presence maybe in Silicon Valley. They really just want to leverage the ecosystem of Rocket Space really as a co-working hub. So they build out their labs from there. For example, like with Accenture, they are on our campus and use it as well, like as an innovation hub. Some other companies might be interested to have as well. They look into a certain trend area, and let's say it's, for example, cryptocurrency. We just recently published a big report on the future of cryptocurrencies and what are the hottest startups in the space. And they really want to get an outside view from Rocket Space or the Rocket X team on whom we think are the relevant partners. And then we have our startups on the campus, and of course we recommend those if relevant, but beyond that we have an international database of about 35,000 startups worldwide, and depending on what they're looking into, it could be as well relevant partners in Tel Aviv or New York or other tech hubs around the world.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about the decision-making process. If I'm an executive inside a big corporate, I've got a decision to make. I know I need to be more innovative. I know I need startup teams to do that. But I'm thinking about where should I let that team work? So they can stay in the office, right, as normal, or I guess they can come to the startup ecosystem. How does someone make that decision and make the choice between the two options available? Or are the lines very blurred? Do you see that the corporate teams that work within your ecosystem, do they still have very strong ties back into the corporate?
So I think first of all, like when making this decision, you wanna look at data as well, like why you want to go maybe outside and why you want to build let's say an accelerator or build like innovation programs out of your headquarters. And it was even proven that especially like for consumer goods companies, that they can innovate at about 50% higher level if they go out of their headquarters and are not like in the existing ecosystem than if they stay in global headquarters and try to build out new products there. So you rather want to choose offsite innovation. I think for a lot of companies, when they start setting up pilots, they do it from a headquarters location, and then when they see it works, they might evolve as well to another location. But I'd say the biggest factor for them is to establish this network and then if they choose an off-site location for innovation programs, they should do it with partners who have been in the ecosystem for quite a long time. That could be venture capitalists, that could be incubator programs, accelerator programs. It could be networking or mentor networks, and then basically leverage their existing network to build their own innovation program. And I think that's as well, like if you look at a lot of corporate accelerator programs who have been successful, mostly all of them are successful because they plugged into existing tech ecosystems.
Okay, so it's going to really 50% speed up my rate of innovation. That's quite good data to fall back on.
Yeah.
Let's look at an example, if you're allowed. Are you allowed to give us an example of a corporate that has decided to do outside innovation in the ecosystem, and maybe give us a few insights into how that team benefited?
So I can. So one partner we work with in Silicon Valley is, for example, Axel Springer, one of the biggest media companies in Europe, and they are very, very active in the startup space, and not just on a German scale, but as well like on an international scale. And they work with different programs, which I think is pretty cool. They work with the Plug and Play Tech Center. They have a partnership with them in Germany. We have a partnership with them in San Francisco. And by setting up different partnership levels and with different partners, I think they can make sure that no matter what innovation field they are looking into, and it could be both investments or as well partnerships, they have the right people on hand to work with. And I think as well what's another factor, and a lot of big corporations have to learn that the hard way, is they might come into Silicon Valley with that view, oh, everyone knows my huge corporation, which might be really big and has like millions of customers all over Europe, but to build out those partnerships with startup companies, you have to first engage with the companies. You have to do developer evangelism events, and to have to engage in the community and then build partnerships from there. And it's not happening like from one day to the other to engage those communities. And you first want to build out this brand as well, this in the tech ecosystem, and then go ahead and do investments and partnerships and further programs.
Okay, so it's very much based around the connections and the networking that can be done on the outside rather from the inside, right?
I'd say so, yeah. And I think as well, really often, even within the companies themselves, you want to put those people in the position to lead, for example, business development or innovation programs, who might have been themselves entrepreneurs or have been working in those fast-paced environments. Because I think it's more like when we bring together developers and corporates, they all speak their own language, and if you have people who are able to bridge those two worlds, that can really speed up your success with those programs too.
Okay, so in your experience, how do you think corporates can encourage more of this behavior? How can we get them to allow more teams to innovate on the outside?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's a process in the company, and I think you need quite a few multipliers or influencers in the company to lead those activities. And really often it's as well like a risk, because there are enough programs, and it takes about minimum like 2 years to have those programs successfully. So you want to highlight a few people who are willing to take the risk to run with those programs, and I think as well, usually it just demands top management attention, that CEO or the board is committed to go into the space and as well like take the investment and the risk to potentially fail with those programs as well. And I think mostly, and I really learned it as well, like during the DLD women in Munich some days ago, you have to develop this as well, this behavior that you open up your organization and that you start in kind of integrating external stakeholders. And I think that's really especially for a lot of German companies, and I'm myself German, so I know the conflict there, but to to open up and to share product stage developments or share idea stages at a very early stage already with potential startups or with other maybe even other innovation leaders, and then go from there. But I think opening up, getting external partners in, and not just trying to do everything yourself, that's a major factor for them.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting, because a lot of key players here are very conservative, especially when it comes to new ideas. No company wants to be sharing their ideas with the outside world. So I think this really requires a change in mindset, and like you said, even if the employees have that mindset, they want to do it, it's the management that have to allow that to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think as well that's a major learning we had in Silicon Valley over the last couple of years, and which I think is as well maybe a German trait, right? That you plan in very much steps all the details of let's say of a launch of an accelerator or of a launch of an innovation program. But I think you either want to take the approach of the lean startup approach and then pivot along the way. So get a really good team together, and then of course you have to plan it out, but don't try to get stuck in the details, and rather if something doesn't go right when the project launched already or the program launched, then you still can pivot, take another month to implement some changes. And yeah, I think take this as well, like from the startup world, to launch something and then see along the way what you can improve.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Let's talk about a slightly different topic. There's a lot of confusion out there between incubation and acceleration, right? So I just wanted to get your view on this, because I think you work more in the area of acceleration, but you do work with a lot of companies that have come from that incubation environment. So how do you view the two topics, and how are they different?
So yeah, as mentioned, we work with startups who have been at an incubation stage already, because as well, like we think when we have startups who have already a minimum viable product, who have an existing customer base already, that are the companies who are interesting as well for corporate partners. And if you take incubation versus acceleration, and yes, I agree, there's a lot of confusion. So those companies who work with those startups who are about to be incubated, let's say Techstars or Y Combinator, to take very prominent examples, they basically take a team, and it could be one or two people, or maybe a few more, and they basically have an idea, and then Techstars or Y Combinator is just evaluating the potential of an idea and helping them with their funding and with their network over the course of 3 months to bring it to a stage where they can go in front of investors and raise a higher amount of money. And this is exactly then when they come out of those programs. And we had like some companies who have been on our campus, for example, Uber or Spotify. They came out of those programs, and of course at that time when they were on our campus, they weren't at that stage where now. But basically the idea had been proven to be successful. They had their first thousands of customers. They might have the seed round or have already raised another like Series A. And then when the idea is validated, they come and accelerate the business and scale it. And I think when you go back to let's say, for example, the incubation area, right? You have to be able in this stage to just validate an idea and a team. And a good example for that might be, for example, Coinbase, when they have been at an incubation stage in 2012, and people saw the potential of the cryptocurrencies, and now it's their startup with most of the VC funding in the cryptocurrency space, and it's the accelerator process is finalized already from my point of view with them.
I'm interested to learn a bit more about Uber. I think everyone knows that company now. How did they benefit by joining Rocket Space after the incubation period? Rather than they could have gone into their own offices, right, at that point in time. Why did they want to continue being part of the ecosystem?
So the biggest advantage what we give them is they can focus on developing the product and developing the business, and not to look into finding the right office space, finding the right infrastructure, and finding the right network as well. So basically they came out of an incubation stage, and then were able to, with the people they had at that time, to go into rocket space and then be able to grow. And we are able to grow with them, no matter if they are like 5 people. If we host actually startups up to a size of 70 or 80 people with Rocket Suite, so they can grow and they don't have to worry about the physical limitations of it. And then beyond that as well, we have about 5 to 10 events a week, so they can mingle and they can connect with other entrepreneurs, but as well with other corporates. So since we have everyone on our campus very closely, so let's say Pearson sits closely to an @Colony or another startup. So I think as well the potential reach out to corporates it can be done way faster, other than if you are in your own offices where you have to reach out to leaders of certain business units from big corporations.
Okay, so it comes down to this mix of not worrying about the mundane stuff like finding office space and the admin work maybe, but also you're accelerating their speed of connections, I guess, and getting them in front of the right people to help grow the business.
Exactly, that's correct.
Okay, so let's move on. We'll bring this to a close in a second, but as you've just mentioned, the incubation process is very important to get companies to the right stage to bring their product to market. It does help if they can be part of an overall ecosystem. What would your advice be to corporates or corporate teams that are struggling with incubation?
Mm-hmm. So I think, and we briefly have touched upon that already, I think first of all, you have to be honest to yourself in what maturity stage you are at. So I think if you haven't made up your mind yet on, for example, what your future growth areas are and where your blue oceans, to put it in INSEAD language, are, if you don't know where they're at, I think you shouldn't launch an incubator yet, because you really want to be clear if you're either looking into big data startups or if you're looking into mobile advertising startups. And you shouldn't, I think you rather have a certain idea what you want to look into than kind of have a really broad, at least in the corporate space, a really broad approach on startups you want to partnering with. And I think another success factor is that you can see that from a range of different corporate accelerators who have been launching over the last couple of years. As mentioned, get the right team, which is made up of corporate representatives, but as well like startup people. Have people know your brand already before you launch, because I think the biggest success factor is that you attract the right startups and that you have a compelling program. And I think the most compelling programs are those who don't just give you money, because money is really hard. That's not hard to get, especially if it's seed round. But if you're a good startup, you're looking for a mentor network, which is strong and which gives you in the long term the access to the right people to scale your product. And you have to build this network up. Even if you're a company with millions of customers, you still need to have access to the right VCs at a later stage or to the right mentors to help them have their product being produced in China, for example, or telling them how to iterate on a certain stage in their development process.
Okay, great. So really getting plugged into a mentor network and building that up sounds like it's going to be important when it comes to the launch phase. This is great. I think you've given us really good insights. We've cleared up the differences of acceleration and incubation. But I think one of the biggest lessons here is that incubating or joining an ecosystem outside of your corporate environment can not only speed up the development process of your new venture, but also make it more successful in terms of getting connected to the right people. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's it for now. So whenever you guys are in San Francisco, you want to come by and check out our space there, because I think it's and that's maybe another factor which I think is important. Also, it's not the most important one, but it's like about people having fun and enjoying the new product, and that's really, even if you work long hours like on the campus, it's always fun, and it's like you meet like a lot of people who have the same mindset as you have, and that's just a really cool thing.
Yeah, and for all the Europeans out there, you guys are going to be in London as well with a physical space soon, right?
Yeah, so London is on our top on our list, and then for Germany, with the Rocket X brand, so the corporate innovation brands, we are here from 1st of August 2014.
Okay, brilliant. Johanna, thank you for joining us today and for
Thank you
giving
very
us some
much,
good
Jan.
insights.
Thank you.